You know I can't recall the day your dream became my life. I've lived an eternity with you by my side. You by my side. Like the sun and the moon, I've seen that your light reflects mine. And riding together we have conquered the skies. But for so long I failed to see the truth as I searched for a fantasy that lived within you. Said, how did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped into my heart? Where did you see?
Hello, I'm Shane Schultz from Serenely Speaking, and this is the Arisen Strength Recap Show. Folks, we do this show every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time because we feel there are far too many dreams, talents, and capabilities that are being suppressed for whatever reason. Whether it be injury, illness, or life experiences, these situations have a way of making us feel robbed of what it is that makes us special and unique in this world, and that's our passions. Here at Arisen Strength, we encourage people to pursue their passions in spite of the challenges that they face. Now, how we do that is through a three-pillar concept. Number one, we support. Number two, we empower. And number three, after all that work, we have the right to celebrate. Folks, that's the Arisen Strength concept. Our goal is to help people bring back the passions of life back to them again. Tonight, we'll be talking about episode number 17, which we shot on 2 Sundays ago, on mold awareness. But before we get started with the show, let me introduce our cast, the ones that are here, and also give you a couple updates on the ones that aren't here. So let's start with my good friend, Wayne the Hack Hacker. Wayne, it's great to have you here tonight.
Great to be here tonight, Shane. I'm really looking forward to this update show. We had a great show with the mold awareness, and we had a nice long interview, very long, substantial interview with Spring from Divinely Toxic.
Yeah.
I think that interview ran about 35 minutes.
Yep.
And the whole interview is available. We took some clips and some segments from that, and we're going to listen to that a little bit later. But before we really get into the show, I understand we have an update on Charles and Dan.
We absolutely do. For those who have been watching the show, we all know that Charles had a kidney transplant. It wasn't really working out all that well. It was actually some severe complications, and it didn't look all that good. Well, we asked for our audience to go ahead and send some prayers and some thoughts and healing and so forth, and well, I got to tell you, he's got the best case scenario coming out of this transplant. In fact, Charles is now home, and I actually got a chance to talk to him the other day. He knows that he's in for a long road here as far as getting back to as good of shape that he can. But he's really looking forward to doing that. And he's also looking forward to coming back to Arisen Strength on the show, as well as being able to help us out with the Essential Needs family and our page for donorship, which is the Human Factor. So he's really looking forward to coming back to that. As far as Dan the Man has been among the missing for a while. He's not been missing. We knew where he was. He just had a lot of things that he needed to do. I talked to him. He also is looking forward to coming back to the show and also working along with Charles on the Essential Needs and the donorship page of the Human Factor. So we're starting to get the among the missing. We're starting to get them to come back around us. And it's gonna. I think it's gonna be better for the show overall. So mold awareness. Believe me, I've had a lot of people say, Shane, what in the world are you doing this for? Well, the thing is, I know it's not real sexy, but I also came to realize that it's really needed. To be honest with you, it started out as a favor for a person within the group and who deals with mold significantly. And so it started out that way, but then as we did our research, we started to learn that mold actually is no different than any other condition or illness that we've talked about so far. This definitely is a condition that can suppress somebody from their dreams, talents, and capabilities, just like any other condition.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of people. We certainly, and we read some interesting articles.
Yeah.
One I read that was really kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the problem was the Ed McMahon story.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And this is Johnny Carson's sidekick, Ed McMahon, for many years.
Yep.
In the I'm pretty sure it was the early 2000s, after the Tonight Show had ended. His wife had gotten very sick, ended up with cancer. He was feeling not well himself, and he had a dog that died. And around that same time, it turned out their house had a major mold problem. He ended up suing his builder. I'm pretty sure it was the builder, and won a $7.2 million lawsuit for the mold problem. And that brought a lot of news and awareness to the mold problem to the American public.
Yeah.
And I guess I had forgotten that story. I must have heard it because it was a big story at the time. But I guess it was happening also with a lot of things going on in America at the time. So it didn't register with me, but it registered with enough people that the mold awareness became a thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is something. I've had some experience in regards to mold. I did some restoration work down in Tennessee. This one actually happened to be for fire restoration, and they had significant water damage from the fire that turned out to be a mold issue later on down the road. So it's not something to fool around with. It's definitely something that it's there. One of the things that we found out in our research, there's quite a lot of opposition that goes against mold, not in the way of being helpful, but more in a way of kind of saying that mold really isn't the cause of illness or a condition that somebody might have.
Yeah, this is a real tricky one. There's very little scientific evidence supporting the fact that mold is responsible for the symptoms the people are feeling. There is a kind of black mold that apparently it can be very dangerous, but there's lots of types of molds, and from the scientific point of view, the molds themselves are not considered dangerous or a problem.
Right.
But these people certainly have these symptoms, and they're certainly living in environments where there is mold.
Sure.
And that's why they're drawing this conclusion for themselves, and that can set up a sort of a conflict, I guess, between sort of the science and the person who, I know how I'm feeling and I know where I'm living. The Arisen strength part of that, though, is the one where I'm not going to just keep doing the same things I'm doing,
Right.
because my life is in a place where I'm not happy with the way things are. I'm not happy with being tired. We talk about you talk about one of the symptoms. There's a long list of symptoms.
Oh, well, it could be anywhere between allergies. It could be heart conditions. It can be muscle aches, extreme headaches, extreme fatigue. All this sounding familiar, folks, because it kind of relates to a lot of different conditions and illnesses that we talked about. In fact, specifically to the thyroid gland. When we talked about the thyroid gland, it's very intricate in the body as far as the levels of the important organs that are within our body. So once one level goes down, next thing you know, all the levels are off, and next thing you've got those similar symptoms. And that seems to be what I've found, is that the doctors really are treating the symptoms of which could be for any number of different conditions that are out there. Whether or not that they're getting to the core of the problem, which might be or might not be the mold situation, some people don't think that they are.
Yeah, a doctor's much more likely to tell you that your problems are maybe you have a sleep disorder. You could be having, like you mentioned, allergies.
Sure.
So you go in because you have a mold problem and you're sure the mold is causing these symptoms, and the doctor is telling you things like, maybe you should get rid of your pet, maybe you should get rid of the carpets in your house, maybe you should put a HEPA filter in. And you're listening to these things, you're thinking, but I've got mold, I've got mold, I've got mold. The doctor's not saying anything about the mold.
Right.
The mold is a symptom of a problem with the house, though. That's one thing we learned, is that there are mold spores everywhere. It's essentially in the dust. It's in the air. So wherever you see dust in your house, there's mold spores there. So the mold's everywhere. You're not going to be able to lock up your house and keep the mold out. Air comes in the house. When the air comes in the house, it brings the mold in with it. The other thing is mold needs food, but there's food everywhere in your house. Mold can eat any kind of organic food. So any food that you leave out in your garbage or on the counters or not sealed up in the shelves, but that's just the start. The drywall, the wood,
Exactly.
anything organic,
Yeah.
the mold can get into and start munching on. Of course, it needs to be activated. The mold spores are everywhere, but they need to take root and come to life and really go to town, and that's where the water comes in. It's the standing water. It's the leaky pipes. It's the too much humidity.
Right.
And if you have those problems, then you're going to start seeing that blackness, that telltale blackness of the mold. And that's when when they start noticing that, they start tying that together with their symptoms. But all that water can be causing other problems. There could be bacterial problems,
Sure.
Rodent infestation, roaches, mosquitoes. So you could have a lot of other things that can come in once you have standing water, once there's a lot of moisture. So, the doctors are a little leery and thinking that, well, we don't want to put the blame on the mold, but the one thing they will agree is that you've got a water problem.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I grew up in a house that had what I call the wet cellar, because we got flooded a number of times in our cellar. We had a family room that we actually did some reconstruction, and we built a beautiful, beautiful room with a fireplace and everything. But the dampness and the moisture that was down in that cellar just would not, support that room. It would end up being having mold on it. We had mold on the walls and so forth. So it's like, I know what it's like to have mold. I don't believe it made a difference that much. I'm not altogether sure. Because my mother had sinus infections big time, but I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it. It's possible, but so we know that there's a water condition when it comes to mold within the home. And long story short, we don't know everything about mold, so we ended up going out and we talked to a number of people, and then next thing you know, we were actually very fortunate to have somebody come to us. Her name is Spring, who has some extensive self-education when it comes to this subject, this topic, because of her own experiences that she's had. And it kind of really fit with the Arisen Strength concept, whether or not that she realized it or not. We both recognized her right away.
Yeah, so here's about a 3-minute clip of Spring from Divinely Toxic.
Divinely Toxic.
Talking about where she was exposed to mold, and then her taking some of those first initial steps to do something about it by educating herself,
right,
and trying to find out what was out there on the internet. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that now.
It was back in about 2008. I was working for a small company, and their office was located in a basement complex underneath a row of small food stores. And it's a typical little basement office complex in Long Island, New York. And, I was very happy there. And maybe about 4 months in, I started to notice growth on the walls of the foyer when you were coming in. And then an awful, it smelled like, pardon me, but it smelled like cat urine. It was a very awful smell, and it's a familiar smell that I'll never forget. Basically, this place was just built to be a petri dish. It had no external airflow. The HVAC system was not very adequate for the size of the room that was actually, being hosted there for little small office spaces. So gradually the mold got worse and worse until our air conditioning stopped working. And in the dead of summer, that's not very comfortable when you have no windows. I explained to my boss, who was an off-site boss himself, always out in the field, that there was an issue with the air conditioning, and there was some mold growth. And he encouraged me to contact the landlord and, take care of that as the office manager. So I did. And the AVC guy came in to check it, and I was watching him because I wanted to see what was up. I had a feeling something wasn't right in the building. My conscience was starting to get to me because I was getting very ill. I was getting red eyes. My skin was always itchy. I was always sneezing. I even started to get these narcoleptic episodes where I would pass out at my desk and wake up. The gentleman pulls out the filter and was in such disgust, he basically dropped it and ran. And I stopped him before he left, and I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, "This entire place is infested. It's dangerous. You need to get out." And at that point, I realized what it was that was making me sick. So fast forward maybe about 8 months, I'm doing very poorly, and other people in the building are getting sick as well. They're going to the hospital. No one can tell them what's wrong with them. They're giving, tons and tons of synthetic pills that don't really do anything except make you more sick. And I finally was able to get online, and I found a couple of local groups on Facebook that started educating me about mold. And it was kind of the Wild West back then. A lot of people weren't outspoken about it and didn't have a lot of info. But I posted a lot of things in the office and warned people. A lot of them left. And the mold kept coming back, and no matter how many times they came in with awful treatments that don't work, like bleach or peroxide, the mold just got literally more angry and pushed on and grew more colonies. And it wasn't just one type of mold. It was cladosporium, it was fumicarium, it was penicillium. It was all of them together with the stachys, and basically they were at a war, and we were all just pawns in their way.
That's quite a story she tells, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, can you imagine being at work and then all of a sudden, you find yourself being more ill, and I'm not just talking about going to work. It's because of the conditions that are within the office. She really feels that it had taken quite a toll on not only her but also her other workmates.
Yeah. Pardon me. And that standing water, some of the damage that it can do to your house, includes, the insulation. The walls start falling apart, so insulation becomes exposed. And if you have an older house, that could be asbestos.
Sure.
The wood could be painted surfaces now start becoming damaged, and if you've got older house again, lead-based paints.
Yeah.
So the mold itself, maybe the doctors are right, and it's not the mold that's making you sick, but maybe you're being exposed to harmful toxins from other sources, from asbestos, from lead paint, from other chemicals that are being outgassed because of the moisture. And it's not even just old houses, right?
No, not at all. I mean, I used to watch home improvement shows all the time, and just to give you an example, I used to watch one with Mike Holmes, of which is very well known. He actually goes after contractors who don't do the job right when it comes to homes, and what he says is that mold is more of an issue than what anybody would give it credit for, and that's probably because of all the backlash that comes back when it comes to the medical stance on it. But he doesn't fool around. I mean, they bring in hazmat suits, I mean, and these houses, these are not older houses. These are newer houses that are being built. And when you come to think of it, how old of a house was Ed McMahon's? I mean, it was probably a pretty well-built house, I would think, but it still had some sort of situation as to where he at least thought that he had the right to sue for.
Yeah, it says new construction is so watertight.
Sure.
So you get a little bit of moisture in the house. It never really goes anywhere. Maybe that wall dries, but that moisture, okay, so that now it's in the air. If your house is watertight, it's not getting outside. It stays in the house, so it accumulates somewhere else. So you can end up with these perennial, moisture problems. So you need to make sure that you have proper dehumidification, that you've got venting. Maybe those they put little cracks in the the little spacers so that you get some airflow,
right?
So that moisture can get out of the house that accumulates in the house. Because believe it or not, moisture accumulates in your house.
And people don't really think about it that way. I mean, they don't think about that they need to have some airspace in order for the moisture to get out of the house. I mean, they're trying to tighten it up. trying to think that, well, if it's going to be brand new, well, you want it to be as new looking as possible, which means no cracks, no air going out, coming in, whatever.
So it's really important, though, with your house construction that, whatever techniques you're using to keep airflow in the house, that it's appropriate for the area, for the seasonal variability, for the the humidity, and whatever that you have locally. So one solution in one city, one region of the country may not be appropriate for another region. So you need to make sure that you're using appropriate solutions for your location.
One thing that I want to say, though, is, and I know that we've kind of gone back and forth on whether or not that is mold really a condition, is it an illness, whatever. Look, just like any other situation, Arisen Strength is not to decide whether or not that this is a valid condition or a valid illness. As far as what we're concerned, there's an effect that's here on somebody, and they feel that it's because of mold. With that being the case, that's all that we need to know, because we are not doctors. We are not specialists when it comes to this situation. What do we always say? Look, Arisen Strength, we help the person while the medical professionals treat the patient. And so, the bottom line is that there is an effect. There is some links. I mean, there's a lot of links that go back to whether or not that mold is a situation or not, when it comes to these illnesses and conditions that people have. Doctors don't have all the answers. They just keep on treating the symptoms, of which maybe or maybe not, leaving the core situation in the middle. But what I can tell you is that as far as Arisen Strength is concerned, we're not insecure enough to say that we don't know it all when it comes to mold. We're not specialists in it. We did our research, which was pretty extensive and more than what it is that we've talked about here. But what we would rather people do, for those who do think that they have a mold issue within their home, that's creating an illness or a condition that they're being struggling with or being challenged with, we suggest that you go ahead and empower yourself, which that's what Spring did. And it was kind of funny that Spring actually mentioned the word empower within the clip. And we both just like, oh my God, it's perfect. So, but what we suggest is that you go ahead and empower yourself to learn about it more. Now, Spring, in fact, this next clip that we're going to be doing, I went ahead and told Spring to go ahead and give her different websites and where she has her information and her articles that she posts and everything in that sense, so as to be able to help our members more than just educate them.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. Just like Spring, she took action to get some difference in her life. But that's what Arisen Strength is about. Yeah, it's about taking that action so that you can get something different out of your life. We don't spend a lot of time worrying about what the exact cause, how did I get here? Right. We like to focus on, accept the fact that I'm here, but let me move to someplace different. Let me start doing things differently than I had been doing. What I was doing and thinking before got me here. So what I'm going to do and think in the future is going to get me to a new place. But yeah, let's go ahead and listen up to what Spring has to say. She's going to talk a little bit about her website, the Facebook page, and then she has a Blogspot website for Divinely Toxic. We'll go ahead and give this a listen now.
Sounds good.
Online, I have a Blogspot. It's not too big yet, but in future, it's in the making. It's very informative, however, and it's all for free. It's at divinelytoxic.blogspot.com. That's D-I-V as in Victor, INELYTOXIC.blogspot.com. And that's a very extensive site that I go into describing modern toxins, my own personal experience, the types of mold and mycotoxins, symptoms, why alter your diet, what foods to choose, how to make your own body products, even going down to the medicinal herbs that I personally used and the exact recipe and treatment plan. So everything's really literally laid out for you, whether you have pets that are sick from mold, whether you're pregnant or breastfeeding, remediation. Also, I warn about other toxins, for instance, the silver fillings I spoke of that are leaching metal into your body. Those are very important to remove, and I have careful recipes and herbs to take that'll ease the suffering. And I also, on Facebook, have a group where I counsel folks. We're almost at 1,600, so it's getting pretty big. And that's simply, you just go under groups and look for Divinely Toxic, and we'll all welcome you with open arms. Many folks in there have actually recovered, and they're really great at helping me run the site. And anybody can be saved. And the one thing I'm going to extend is that please never think you're crazy, and you're never alone. I had to suffer like that, and I vow to make sure that nobody else has to ever feel that way.
So that's Spring from Divinely Toxic. It's kind of funny. You wouldn't know it as the audience, but we actually lost our power here. So we're dealing with our own challenges and struggles when it comes to this show. I mean, as the whole block went out right in front of us.
Yeah, we were outside for a while. All the street lights were out. Really dark out there when the street lights are out.
Yeah.
And neighbors all pouring out. And it was a cool night at least. We had to get out of the hot house, get out into the cool. But by the time the power came back on, it was way late. And so we're back. It's the next day.
It's the next day. It's almost 24 hours.
Yeah. It was right when we were going to the Springs clip. We were just like, okay, let's go listen to the Springs clip, and then everything went. The whole neighborhood went for blocks in either direction.
And we were in pitch dark. But anyways, so like I mentioned before, we're not insecure enough in order to say, hey, look, stay with us because we'll get all the information that you need. We definitely encourage people to empower themselves to get the information that they need in order to better their lives, however needs that be made. And Spring definitely has quite a lot of information on her sites. She's done quite a lot of work. She's starting up that blog spot, which she says is kind of small, but it's getting a little bit bigger now. So I'm sure that we're going to be talking to her again. It's like I said, this show, no matter what topic that we go over, it cannot be fully talked about in one show.
Yeah, and she's branching out, not just mold, but all toxins in your life.
Yeah.
And what you can do if you're feeling like toxins are really bringing you down and affecting your life. What are some of the things that you can do? And a lot of it seems like common sense, but to hear somebody else tell you, get better sleep, change your diet, get some exercise. Sometimes that's what it takes. And for Spring, that worked for her. Got her back. She's a lot more aware of her environment.
Yeah.
She's a lot more aware of what she puts into her body, and she's a lot more aware of what she does with her body. And she's feeling a lot better than she was when she started that story working in that office with all that mold.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we talked to her as well, is because when we did the interview, she sounded like she was Arisen strength material. I mean, yeah. She used the word empower a number of times, and that really kind of rang the bell for us. And then on top of things, I would tell anybody that I'm talking to as a life coach or as being able to help somebody, I would tell them the same thing. I would tell them, it's like, well, let's do the basics first. Let's make sure that we're getting a good diet. Let's make sure that we're getting plenty of sleep. Because in my experience, not getting the right nutrition, not getting the right amount of sleep, it definitely throws it off. It doesn't even need to be a condition or an illness. It'll throw you off. So, so it was kind of funny how she kind of fell right into exactly the way that we do things here. So her site is definitely worthwhile to take a look at.
Right.
So that is mold awareness for now. That's episode number 17. We really want to say thank you to Spring for all her efforts and helping us out. We did the best that we could with it, and I'm sure, like I said, we're going to talk about it again. Now, unfortunately, we've had quite a few changes here with Arisen Strength over this past week. In fact, we actually canceled last Thursday's show, and we canceled Sunday's show as well, which was going to be for lupus. Now, it wasn't really expected by any means. Unfortunately, both Wayne and I and the Arisen Strength family had somebody pass away who was very dear to us, a very good friend by the name of Eric J. Williams. That was just something that wasn't expected.
Yeah, Eric was a young man, in his 30s. I had met him about 3 years ago now, almost exactly 3 years, almost to the day. It seems like, but certainly within a month. In treatment, I was in an intensive day program. I've told the story about how I was in my apartment for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Did not go outside.
Which he could relate with.
And finally one day, making it out of the apartment, making it to the police station, getting myself some help, that ended me up in the hospital for about a month. And coming out of the hospital, I ended up moving to a new location, getting my life sort of restarted and starting taking care of the things that I needed to take care of. And that included a day treatment program, which was several hours a day, every day.
Yeah.
If any of you out there have had a therapist or gone to group therapy, this was about 15 sessions a week. It was pretty substantial, and that's
intensive.
Intensive. It was intensive day treatment, and that's where I first met Eric, and he was going through, his own tough times in his life, but he ended up living nearby. We rode the bus in the morning on the way to treatment. And we got to know each other very well. We had about a 20-minute bus ride into town to head to treatment. And so he and I started our days out every day with a conversation about something that it could be frivolous. It could have been, but usually it was actually pretty deep stuff. It was we started really doing the hard work of therapy, which is in your own head.
Yeah. Yeah. And I met Eric. He was actually a friend of a friend, because it was my good friend Ronnie, who I talk about often, who also passed away tragically. His anniversary is coming up in September 13th.
Ronnie's the inspiration for the Starburst.
It is, yeah, he really is. He is indeed. And so is the good friend, because what it was is that Ronnie was a good, not a good brother, a big brother to a young gentleman, not so young, but a gentleman by the name of Michael. And Michael was in the same apartment building as Eric. And so when I was talking with Eric, all of a sudden there's Michael, and it was like a flashback city, what was going on with that, because it brought a whole lot of memories, and and then there's Eric, and Eric was to me somebody who was dynamic, and he didn't even know it. He was this gentleman. He had 2 master's degrees. He was not, and it was from a very accredited school, RPI, very well known for technology and computer science and IT and so forth, and a whole lot more. They're big in NASA even. He could have really done anything that he wanted engineering-wise, but he didn't act as if like he had that. It's like he had this way about him that you knew that he was very intelligent. He knew what he was talking about, but he didn't beat you over the head with it. He kind of uniquely maneuvered words around that didn't make you feel as if like he was above you or anything like that. He was actually trying to help you understand a little bit more, in a very welcoming way, and that was something that was impressive to me. And he was very, very sensitive to other people's emotions and how other people are feeling and thinking. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, The truth is that when Eric was found on Friday of, I believe it was last week, 2 weeks ago now.
A week ago now for us, probably
Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks ago by the time this airs.
Right. Okay. He was found, and there's nothing about him. I mean, there's no obituary. There's no talk. There's no memorial. Nothing. And to be honest with you, that kind of hurts me. That hurts my heart because Eric had a lot to say. Now, when I'm not saying that we know what happened, because we don't. All we know is that he had passed away, and we know that it's as extremely quiet as it is. In some cases, when it's quiet like that, there's something that's behind it. And I'm not trying to suggest otherwise, but no matter what the situation was, this man had a whole lot to say. He had a lot to say about his life. He impacted a lot of lives that were out there. And for him not to have a voice in his passing, in a way, is not acceptable to me. And neither is it to you.
Right.
So we're doing this for our good friend because he deserves it. You're trying to get some closure for us, even though that it's very difficult. But at the same time, we're trying to do this the right way in order for our friend to be thought about and remembered in a way that we want him to be. He had this voice when he would fool around. He had the voice of the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz. And he was anything but a coward. I mean, the man was gentle, but he was, in a way, he was very strong to not go where the path is most traveled. He had a number of different social aspects of him that it wasn't easy for him to be socially active with people. It wasn't easy for him at all, and and he found a time, especially like lately. It was like, man, he's looking better and better than what it is that he had looked over the past 3 years or so, to where, man, we really thought that he was going to be coming out of this, the way that he wanted to. It wasn't necessarily what anybody expected, but it was going to be the way that he wanted to. And, I even approached him on being on the cast of Arisen Strength because I think that he's got a lot, he has a lot to say. I say he has a lot to say, but I mean, you know what I mean. He had a lot to say that would have been helpful to a number of people that are out there that could relate to what it is that he's been through. He's been through abuse. He's been through mental illness. He's been through his social issues. He's been through just some things that are not easy to go through. And he found his way through it, struggled quite a bit, but he kept on pursuing it, and he kept on pursuing the knowledge, which I loved about him. He always wanted. We would go into our group, and he would sit there and he would take notes, and it'd be about this damn thick when it comes to the binder, because he's taking notes of what it is that he's trying to learn, and I know that impressed you as well.
Yeah, when we'd ride in the bus in the morning and we'd have our conversations, one thing and this is something that still impacts me today, years later, from having these conversations with Eric, but it was a lot to do about the meaning of words. It was really important to him as he was doing his therapy to make sure that he understood what words meant and how people were using them and how he wanted to use them in his life. And we're talking about words like love, respect, justice, serenity. And he would take notes on these. He'd write about these words. He'd take notes on these words, and we would discuss these words. And we would discuss them from the point of view that different people can have different meanings for these words. That I don't have to have the same meaning for these words that other people do. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, what Eric found to be true was that other people use these words without really thinking carefully about what those words meant to them. We all say, I love you. We all say, I respect you. We all say, I want peace. I want, but what do you mean by that? When you're using that word, is it just shorthand for a lot of other things? Because, like love is a word, you can love your dog. You could love a TV show. You could love your significant other. You could love your mother. You could love your brother. Those are all different kinds of love. And so that was, when you talk about loving something or someone, maybe, having that, internalizing that a little bit. Well, that was important to Eric because he needed to do that. He needed to understand what these words meant to him. He also wanted to understand what they meant to other people so that he could have a conversation with other people that he found meaningful. And that's something, that experience with him has really, really impacted me because I think a lot more nowadays about the conversations I have with people and the words that I use. I talk about a lot of times there's a thing called the language handshake where I think of an idea in one head and an idea in another head. I want to communicate my idea to you and I have to do it with language. And so I think a lot about how the language I use and the language that you use fit together so that the thought that I'm having is communicated accurately to you so that I'm not misunderstood. That turns out to be a big problem with communication that a lot of us have with communication, that I have with communication, is I'm trying to explain something and I'm running into a bit of a brick wall because the words I'm using have different meanings to other people, so I have to find a workaround. But my dealing with Eric over the years made me very sensitive to that.
Right.
And so I try to be a little bit more careful. Maybe I'm not any better at communicating, but I'm certainly a lot more aware of when and why I'm failing, rather than getting sort of frustrated with the process and blaming the other person, judging the other person, when it comes down to, hey, I just have different words than you do, or I have words that I have defined differently than you have. We have the same words, but we just have different definitions, and that's not a reason for me to judge you. That's just a fact of life, and I have to deal with it on an individual basis, one-on-one with people. So the time that I spent with Eric really, really left that impression on me, and that's something that I'll carry with me forever. And it's something that every time I think about words, when I'm especially in conversation and what words mean, I think of Eric. So Eric is, we may not know of a memorial service for him. We may not know the exact circumstances of his passing. There may be a lot of mystery sort of shrouded in his passing, but he's definitely not forgotten. He's left an impact on me, and that impact will carry on for years to come. And it will impact other people because of the way I communicate with people. That's, sort of an echo of Eric onto that other person.
Yeah. He had a way of softly making you aware of your surroundings and him. And like he would challenge you with the words that you would use, but at the same time, it wouldn't be like you're using the wrong word or you don't know what you're talking about. It's more like, hey, I see it being this way that you're talking to me. Is that really the way that you want it to be? And of course it's like, well, no, I didn't really mean to offend you. But so it was just one of those things, man. It's just this just bothers me. But there's a reason why we took time off, because this one hurts the heart. He's gonna be with you and I, and we are going to do, for our audience to know, we're gonna do a special memorial video with Eric. Unfortunately, we don't have any video on Eric, but we're going to invite some of our other friends who do know Eric, and get their thoughts and feelings.
Have them share their memories
Yeah.
of Eric
Yeah.
with us, and we want to put it together in a video. And something that, of course, tasteful, and something that we can put up on YouTube as a tribute to Eric,
Yeah.
so that in the future, anybody that sort of does a Google search on his name, his video will come up.
Right.
So that it's a virtual tombstone. I don't know. There's a virtual headstone. But it's more than that, because it's going to be a little story. There's going to be some, you'll be able to hear the voices of the people whose lives that he impacted. There's evidence that he did exist, that he did live here, and he did have an impact, and that impact carries on to today.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just doing our part in order to make sure that, he's heard. Because I believe that I think we all deserve to be heard in our passing. And, some of the things that, when I went to different services and such, I've been to a few lately, and, they all have people talking about them and their memories and their accomplishments and everything in that sense. And it gives you a sense of closure, and also gives you some memories to laugh about and to smile about, and to, where here it's just an emptiness. It's just an empty feeling that I have right now, aside from my memories. And so that's why we're doing this. And, it's just one of those things. He just impacted us, and we believe that this is a tribute that we'd like to do. I'm all right with it. I think that it's something that was necessary for
Right.
you, I, and Eric. And so Eric, my friend, you are no longer with us here. We will hopefully get a chance to hear you again at some point in time. But you're in our heart, and you're in our thoughts, and will be from now on. So, that was tough.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's the show for tonight. Blog Talk Radio with Michael Long and the Journey into the Light. We're having a pretty good time over there. He had a vacation that Michael had decided to take. He's had some issues of his own that he's been dealing with, and but we're going to be back not this week.
This week.
No, I don't believe it's this week. I think it's the week after.
Are you talking about this week that we're filming, or this week that we're airing?
Oh, well, yeah, okay. All right.
For the viewers at home, it'll be this week.
Listen,
Back
I'm
on
off
the air.
my game. Like I said, there's a reason why we took time off. But anyways, yeah, soon. So we're having a good time with it. What else do we got going? We've got Lupus coming up, right?
Yeah, we got Lupus coming up.
August 2nd?
August 2nd, I think.
Okay.
That's the date on the calendar right now for it.
Yeah, another reason why we took time off is because we didn't want the topics that we have in line to be affected by our circumstances that we've been dealing with. We want to be able to go at it at 110% as much as possible. We're going to start it off with Lupus. We are probably going to change the scheduling of the show to where we're going to do it every other week.
Yeah, and that I got to take a little bit of a lot of that on me, because we were able to make the show week to week to week to week.
Yeah.
As long as we had
everything going right.
Everything going just right, especially as we started upping the production game here, adding with the split camera view that we have, and graphics and music and those, putting those elements into the show take time, And if things are going perfectly well, then we can nail it out. We can get it out. Boom, 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 boom. But any little bump in the road, we didn't have any. There's no margin for error.
Yeah, no.
So and
my schedule.
And it can be exhausting. You
Yeah.
know, it's it's one thing to be able to put the show out every week without issues, but it's another thing to to think, well, I'll never have issues in my life. No, I'm going to have issues in my life. And so by giving us every other week, and I talked to Shane about this, I said, Shane, really, I don't want to be slowing the show down.
Right.
I don't want to be the person that does that. But in order for me to put into the show what I need to put in, I need, maybe every other week, so it can slow down, so I can put the production in that I want to put in, for the editing, that I have the time to do it, that I have a day or two here, a day or two or three, so that when something comes up that, it doesn't impact the show. Because it gets, one thing, we want to get on a nice regular schedule where for the audience too, that they're not impacted by, are we on this week? Or are they not on this week? What happened this week? What happened that week? So a schedule that we can really stick to, barring, the worst possible disasters. We want to make sure that we're getting the product out and it's as good as high quality as we can possibly make it.
But I think that's going to be our new show is every other week. We might throw in some older shows that are broadcasted on the sites and so forth, so that people can see, they can recollect. People are already talking about they want to hear about autism again. So we'll figure out something. We're going to be around in a lot of ways, some ways that we haven't even talked about yet, so it's really to get a better product out there for people to be able to hear correctly, be able to see, be entertained. It's an hour-long show, so we need to be able to keep the attention of our audience as best as possible, and we know how to do that. We know how to do a lot of different things production-wise and everything. We just need the time to be able to do that. My schedule, unfortunately, it just is really tight, whether it be Arisen Strength, Serenely Speaking, Speaking to the Heart on Blog Talk Radio, and we've got other things that we are doing that we haven't talked about yet. So, so with that being the case, and then Wayne's got his own schedule, and this way it allows us to be able to do those things, but at the same time it also allows us to really emphasize our strengths and be able to put out a product that I'm very much looking forward to, and I think the audience is going to be very impressed with what it is that we do from here on out.
Right.
So I think that's the show. My mind can't take any more. So, don't forget about us. We are going to do our recap show is what the week. What week are we doing this week? This coming week?
Well, this Sunday we have the Lupus show.
This Lupus show is on August 2nd.
That's this Sunday.
Okay. All right. So the Lupus show is August 2nd. That's going to be our show on Sunday, and then we're going to hit the ground running from there. And but this show here is what? It's going to be the week of?
This is
the mold awareness.
Yeah, so
this is next Thursday.
July 31st.
July 31st on Thursday, right? Okay. Okay. Sorry. Well, like I said, we're a little bit off schedule here.
August 31st.
August? No.
We're in July
now.
now.
You're really trying to drive me nuts.
We're still in July.
It's July.
Okay, July 31st.
All right. So July 31st on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the Arisen Strength Interactive Studio on Chatsey.
That was an hour ago.
We're going to be... What is this? It's like Abbott and Costello here.
It's almost 9 o'clock now. on July 31st, Thursday night.
Yeah.
It's about 9 o'clock now.
Okay. All right. So this is broadcasting on July 31st. Okay. And so next show that we're going to be doing is August 2nd, which is on lupus. And we are intending on having a number of different interviews that are going to be part of that show. So you definitely want to take a look at it. And then we're going to be in the Chatsy room with the Interactive Studio on August 2nd.
This is August 2nd.
Maron. All right. He's playing with me. Good night, everybody.
Saw that you were my truth. Said, how did you know? How did you know? You'd be my angel. When your wings were trapped into my heart. And where did you see? And where did you see? That we would be wonderful. And our dreams will live where we are. How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped into my heart? And where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are? How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped into my heart? Where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are? How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped in my heart? And where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams